Whether they're being used for honor or downright murder, the sword has been the all-time benchmark of melee weapons, and the Transformers are no stranger when it comes to impaling each other with serrated Cybertanium metal. What's up you guys, my name is RBG and I'm bringing you my list of the top sword/blade wielding Transformers. Originally I wanted to make this list exclusive to the Swordsmen of the TF Bayverse, but unfortunately there aren't enough sword wielders in the live action films to go around. So we'll just have to make do with the worthy candidates who still know how to cut loose with their own unique blades. But anyways, the Cybertronians may prefer guns and missiles, but the sword is a powerful weapon used by both Autobots and Decepticon factions. For this list, I'll be basing my ranking on how much each robot uses their weapon and how effective they are with their techniques. With that said, let's see who's the most cutting edge robot. Dropping in at number 10 is the killer helicopter who's constantly mistaken for Blackout, Grindor. Yes, I know what you're saying, why add a glorified Jabba remode to the list when you can add the original? Well, just for the simple fact that this character actually scores some hits to our flagship bot with his blade gets him a well-warranted spot on the list. Grindor is said to be a cold and calculating warrior making note of every possible outcome before he makes his move. He can predict his opponent's next move before they even make it themselves. He's armed with rotary machine guns and energon wave cannons, but his most effective weapon just so happens to be the helicopter rotor blade, which he can detach and wield as a close combat weapon. In Revenge of the Fallen, he takes part in a large firefight when the Autobots arrive before Megatron can interrogate Sam to find the location of the Sun Harvester. He was the first to land an opening attack on Optimus Prime, grabbing the Autobot leader and sawing into his stomach before being knocked away. But halfway through the fight, he get his right arm cut off and brutally murdered as Optimus stuck a pair of hooks into the Decepticon's face before pulling and ripping it clean in half, followed by some harsh insults.
Piece of tin.
Coming in at number 9, we have Ratchet, the big chief medic of the Autobots and nightmare surgeon to the Decepticons. Ratchet is a walking makeshift weapon. You'd think he has a knack for killing since he does it so gracefully, but this perceptive giant has a huge disdain towards violence. According to the official movie site, Ratchet believes the conflict can be solved peacefully without any violence. However, he still carries out Optimus Prime's orders, even if it means using brute force. And being at the heart of battle for so many years has allowed him to become a master improviser with his surgical tools. In the movie, he uses a red laser to scan and try to calibrate Bumblebee's voice box as they are introduced to Sam Witwicky and Michaela. He's armed with a heavy machine gun that's able to apply pressure to incoming enemies, but one of the most notable tools in his arsenal has to be his Tyrannium buzzsaw. As his comrade Jazz destroyed one of Brawl's rocket pods, Ratchet used his buzzsaw to slice off the tank's left arm. And man, was it one of the most badass moments you could expect from an Autobot pacifist. For a big robot who's riddled with makeshift weapons, he has agility that puts most gymnasts to shame. Unfortunately, we don't really see Ratchet use the saw again. That's why he comes in at number 9 on this list. Seeking the number 8 spot, we have Starscream. For centuries, the duplicitous Seeker has come to believe that Optimus and Megatron have lost sight of what's best for the Cybertronian race and simply pursue their own agendas. Staying true to his G1 counterpart, he believes he has the right tools to be the leader over all Cybertronians. But what may have once been noble goals are now buried under his own self-interest. But anyway, Starscream can transform into a Lockheed Martin F2 Raptor. When in jet mode, he can simulate the presence of a human pilot, the same holographic model referred to as a mustache man from all the other Decepticons. His arsenal consists of an advanced range air-to-air missile, M61A2 20mm multi-barrel cannons which can hold 480 rounds of 20mm ammunition and feeds the gun at a rate of 100 rounds per second. If he can't get the job done with those toys, he can switch to his buzzsaw that he stores in his right arm. Although it isn't made of Tyrannium like Ratchet's saw, Starscream's saw is just as deadly. And since he's an aerial bot, his combat is flexible on land and in air. During Dark of the Moon, he flew in to kill many human soldiers on Ospreys. He used his buzzsaw to cut the wings off the Krauts with little effort, successfully killing at least dozens of Nest human soldiers. Later on, Starscream was seen using his saw in an attempt to kill Sam. Unfortunately, our treacherous Decepticon didn't keep his eye on Sam's grappling hook, which ultimately took him out, followed by a boomstick to his other remaining optic. Coming in at number 7, we got the stealthy bot with an attitude, Mirage. Mirage, also known as Dino in the films, appeared in Transformers Dark of the Moon, where he appears at the nuclear facility with Bumblebee, Sideswipe, and Q. Although he follows the Autobot code, he isn't particularly fond of humans. Like the late Jazz, Dino takes his appearance seriously and prides himself on his looks. He believes that there is no better vehicle mode than the Ferrari, which is why the red 458 is his ideal alt mode. He's armed with a dart rifle, an electro disruptor, and when he wants to catch his enemies off guard, he has his cloaking ability, which for whatever reason he doesn't use in the movie. He also possesses 2 blades forged from the strongest Cybertronian alloys that he wields viciously in battle, which once again he doesn't use in the film. During an infiltration mission, he joins B, Sideswipe, and Q to take an illegal nuclear weapon site in the Middle East. Driving alongside the entrance road, he smashes through the barrier, transforms with his blades flashing, ordering the guards to stand down as the Autobots move in to destroy the plant.
On the ground, per favore, and stay there.
And that's basically it. There's not really any moment where Dino uses those gnarly blades to slice Decepticons to ribbons. That's basically why I had to place him so low on the list. But if you played the Dark of the Moon video game, you know that those arm blades come in handy when you're surrounded by hostile Decepticons. Still in the 6th spot on the list, we have Lockdown. Carving his own path with no allegiance but his own, and in some cases money, Lockdown is arguably the most effective killer on this list. He was a ruthless mercenary who had affiliated himself with creators as a Cybertronian bounty hunter. He always fulfills the contracts and missions he's assigned to as long as he gets paid, and he does what he needs to in order to get the job done. The interesting thing to note about this particular entry is that he doesn't necessarily keep a consistent arsenal. Since he's constantly looting weapons from the victims he kills, his armory is constantly changing. Lockdown has a slew of weapons, like the face cannon, which he uses while his targets are caught off guard. When it comes to blades, he has a signature hook that he mostly uses to drag things to his ship, but I think the most underrated weapon he possesses would have to be his retractable blades in his arms. During the climactic battle with Optimus Prime, Lockdown gradually gains the upper hand after the Autobot leader tries to protect Cade. The blades can be connected to his arms or hands and double as these weird scissor thingies. It's also worth mentioning that Lockdown was able to use Optimus Prime's knightly longsword against him by cramming it through his chest. With stats like those, he's worthy of his spot on this list. Jumping in at number 5, we have the Guardian Knights, aka the Knights of Iacon. Now this was pretty tricky because I was originally going to add 1 knight onto this list, but since there's not that many distinctive differences with each of the 12 members, I've decided to add them all in. Not to mention that most of them carried around classic swords which the list is mainly catered to. After realizing the evil tentacle sorceress Quintessa wasn't benevolent as she claimed to be, the Guardian Knights stole her staff to prevent her from destroying the Earth. They set out aboard a ship into space in hopes of finding worthy allies on another world. Many eons later, their ship would crash land on a hill in England where King Arthur and his Knights of the Round Table were battling against the Saxons. After encountering the Arthurian Knights and seeing that they were indeed trustworthy, the Guardians would form an alliance with them. But by the 21st century, both of the Knights of the Round Table and the Knights of Iacon had fallen into legend along with the Great Staff. That's until their sleep was rudely interrupted by a mind-controlled Optimus Prime who seized the staff for his maker. Shortly after the hidden ship ascends from the ocean, the Guardians emerge to beat down Optimus with their swords and axes, and they don't necessarily care if Optimus is under the influence of a mad sorceress. They would have ultimately put him down with a sword if good old Cade Yeager didn't bust out one of his own. Still in the 4th spot on this list is the mighty Megatron. What's there to say that hasn't already been said about the Decepticon High Lord? He's the main antagonist of the Transformers cinematic universe. He's extremely powerful, destructive, and a warmongering Transformer hell-bent on Decepticon rule over humankind. The sworn enemy of his goody two-shoes brother Optimus Prime. What separates Megatron from most of the characters on this list is his ever-changing appearance and weaponry. Like, he's arguably had the most makeovers out of any Decepticon. In the first film, he was one of the largest Transformers, wielding a battle flail and a fusion cannon to stomp a mud hole into Optimus Prime. In the second film, he had an arm-mounted deathlock pincer that he used to kill Optimus. Now, I'm not going to bother mentioning the 3rd and 4th installments since he becomes a complete joke and his weaponry gets downgraded heavily. But in Transformers The Last Knight, we see the Decepticon baddie get a major upgrade. He gets fitted with knightly armor courtesy of his maker, Quintessa. And among his weapons, he has a signature arm-mounted cannon and this sick-ass axe sword. Now I gotta admit, we don't really see him use his sword for any means other than intimidation, but later in the movie he uses it to push back the Autobots. If it wasn't for Hot Rod's time-freezing gun, Hound's head would have been mounted on Quintessa's wall. Sliding in at number 3 is the edgy speed skater, Sideswipe. This dude garnered a huge following after he made his debut in Revenge of the Fallen. When you think of swords, you instantly think of Sideswipe since they've been a trademark to his character since Generation 1. He has 2-wheeled feet like Bone Crusher from the first film and is armed with guns, a back-mounted machine gun, and Cybertanium blades. Thanks to these awesome attributes, he's one of the most agile in the Autobot camp and can cut down enemies with great precision. During a mission in Shanghai, he showcases his skills as he uses his left sword to propel himself into the air over sideways, fires his back-mounted guns, and launches his right sword into Sideways' hood. He then lands on the ground, twirls around, reattaches his blade, and pulls it through to finish Sideways off. Then he triumphantly twirls around again and says,
Damn, I'm good.
But he only uses his blades twice while he uses his blasters 3 times, so I can't place him any higher on the list. But hey, he's the only newcomer from the second film that would make it into Dark of the Moon, and I hear that his arm blades are nearly indestructible. Not bad for a bot with minimal screen time. Taking the number 2 spot is the face of the Transformers films, Mr. Big Bot himself, Optimus Prime. Arguably the most controversial version of the character and nicknamed Murderous Prime,
I'll kill you!
Bay Optimus was the first robot to pull out a sword and decapitate his enemy. Besides being a master marksman and exceptional in hand-to-hand combat, he's become even more known for his formidable swordsmanship. In movie 1, he deploys his energon-infused sword from his right arm to take out Bone Crusher, and in part 2, he changes it up by using 2 from both of his arms to fight Grindor, Starscream, and Megatron in the forest. In part 3 is where Optimus goes overkill with his blade obsession. He retains his swords from the previous films, however instead of deploying them from his wrist, he instead grabs them from a weapons rack, which is formed by his trailer. We're talking swords, axes, you name it, and boy does he make use of those destructive weapons. In Dark of the Moon, he uses his Energon axe to cut into Megatron's upper torso and cleave his head clean off his shoulders. Prior to that, he was seen running a slasher marathon through hordes of Decepticons. By the time part 4 rolls around, he still has his Energon blade, but when he tries to use it on Galvatron, it gets shredded into a stomp. So Robo-Jesus is forced to pull out the big guns, or should I say the big sword. He goes back to Lockdown's ship and extracts the Knightly Longsword from the Knight's armory. This is where the real stabbing begins, and Optimus gets more bloodthirsty. Not even 15 minutes into acquiring a deadly weapon and he's already threatening to cut off the head of an angry T-Rex. He cuts up a plethora of KSI drones and ultimately kills Lockdown by pushing the sword through his back and sliding it up his face. In Transformers The Last Knight, his sword kill count doubles. After he's possessed by Quintessa, he'll cut through anything to please his maker. Some of the first victims include the Iacon guards in Merlin's tomb. After he snaps out of his MK Ultra mind control, he completely owns the Combiner Infernicus, causing him to separate into his components, who proceeded to be decapitated in one mighty swing by Optimus' sword. There is so much I can say about this beautiful weapon. It's definitely a sword worthy of being wielded by a Prime. Slashing his way into the well-deserved top spot is the former Decepticon turned Autobot, Drift. You know how the old saying goes, a hero desires a sword and a sword desires truth, or whatever philosophical dribble you want to come up with. Drift is the only Cybertronian who engages in combat strictly with his swords. Due to his corrupt past, the lone samurai refuses to pick up a gun of any kind. It simply goes against his Bushido code of honor. The scars of battle changed his way of thinking, and now Drift wields his swords for good as a member of the Autobots. But leaving the Decepticons didn't necessarily fix all his issues, as Drift is still prone to go on a complete tirade, stabbing any and everything including his Autobot companions. It's a good thing he's always on the battlefield because he can use that pent-up frustration to cut loose. In Age of Extinction, he comes close to offing Bumblebee after he insults Bee's leadership skills. Later in the film, you can see him slicing down KSI drones with little effort. In The Last Knight, he spends most of his time practicing with his sword and doing meditative balancing feats, which are occasionally upset by the many Dinobots. One of his only on-screen kills was during a team-up with Crosshairs where he cuts off Onslaught's leg before swiftly decapitating his fat head.
I got the leg! His fat head.
This dude is undoubtedly the best sword wielder on this list, and his great sword is the best amongst all the blades in the TF films. But with that said, I'm gonna conclude this video. Who would you put on the list? And what do you think of mine? Let me know down in the comments below. As always, I ask that you like or dislike the video. It doesn't matter if it's a thumbs up, it can be a thumbs down. Any feedback is good feedback and will only help me improve on future content. But if you really enjoyed the video, it would help me out tremendously if you shared it on social media with all your friends and followers. For the next video, we'll be finding out who's the strongest combiner / giant. To gain early access to these videos and a chance to see your recommendation make it into a video, I highly recommend you become a patron for only a mere $1 a month. But anyways, this is your boy RBG signing out on another video. I will catch you guys later. Peace out.